Hello and welcome to another episode of Wannabe Entrepreneur. Today I have another interview and I have a good friend of mine here to speak with, Cristi. Hey Cristi, what's up?
Hello, happy to be here.
Well, we met each other in, it's somehow related to Trivago, I guess. It's my second company. So after Trivago, I worked for a startup called Weekend. And we worked together. Cristi worked as a kind of a full-time freelancer. I don't know if that's how it works, but as a freelancer, but it worked regularly with us. And I guess also I learned recently that the first impression that Cristi had on me was not too good, right?
Yes, I do remember that. I did tell you about it a while ago. I think the first impression, when we first started working was a while ago. I don't know, maybe I was going through a bad time and there was nothing wrong with you. Maybe there was more things wrong with me. I don't know. But yeah, I think that was a good start though, because it was easy to stay objective and to actually figure out that you're a great professional and very nice to work with. So it's nice when you have surprises like these.
Yeah, you could only get better, I guess. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I guess Cristi is more into the front end, even though he also works with Java and in the back end. And we were also work. I think our first project was more in the DevOps area. We tried to moving the website to Kubernetes. It was a fun journey. Yeah, I guess I would like to start, as I always do here in the interviews, to ask you, Cristi, to introduce yourself to the listeners. Who is Cristi?
Who am I? Currently I am the founder, owner, and part-time full-stack developer at Citadel Hub, a company which I started quite a while ago, but it only started taking off, I think, a couple of years ago to the day. That's pretty much it. That's what my LinkedIn profile says anyway.
I guess we'll be talking today about that journey, the journey of creating your Citadel Hub, this consultancy company that you have. But I also wanted to ask you, so what is your background? What did you study?
Computer science, and currently also trying to finish my PhD thesis about autonomous vehicles, but mostly engineering and computer science. That's pretty much it.
So the PhD, by the way, which I find it super interesting, the fact that you can both, have your own company and do a PhD. Why did you decide to do it?
Well, you call it interesting. I call it a very bad life choice. I don't know. It's super stressful, and it's definitely taking a toll on me. It's not as easy as I make it sound, maybe. It probably came from a very weird need to always stay busy. I never like to have downtime unless it's a holiday, of course. But even then, I find some way to set up a meeting or do something.
Yeah, when I spoke with you, besides working super hard for Weekend, you were also not only doing your PhD but also managing a team and also giving classes. You're also a teacher in the university, so there's so many things always going on, right?
I don't know. I just don't know how to function otherwise. And I tried. And as I said earlier, I still find some way to do something, even on a holiday. I remember I had a holiday 2 weeks ago, actually 1 month ago, and I set up a meeting on a Tuesday just because, I just couldn't say no. To a meeting.
I mean, I also feel the same. If I think about it, like every time I was having holiday or doing something that especially related to studying, that it was very boring for me. Like I felt that I couldn't stop on thinking about other initiatives and projects I could take over. So I guess it's also it's a bit connected with this entrepreneurial spirit.
I think you need that. I mean, if you don't have this untamed desire to always do something and to grow and to just keep yourself busy, you can't really be a great entrepreneur in the end. But business is more than a full-time job. It's a 24/7 job. So if you're not willing to do it like this, to take all that time out of your life, then I don't see much success in your future.
I guess that's kind of the misconception that is sold by movies, that you see people, starting companies, and they always, in the part of the hard work, they always do a video montage and they accelerate that process. But of course,
Yeah.
that's a lot of work, and it never stops. So walk me through. You finish your studies, and did you immediately start your company, or did you try to work for someone else?
I think as a legal entity, I started the company back in 2013.
Okay.
And it has existed since. Yet back then I was a bit younger, and
how old were you?
I think I was 20. Yeah,
20
when I started it. But that was one of the first mistakes I did, by the way. One of the biggest mistakes I did at the beginning was trying to jump into this whole thing without actually having the knowledge required to do it. I think it was great. I mean, I tried many things even before that, in some way or another.
A lot of side projects.
Yeah, lots of side projects.
Yeah.
And 2013, I started it, as I said, as a legal entity, but definitely without the knowledge that I needed, and with other things that I had in 2019 when it actually started taking off somehow.
Did you already had in mind what you wanted to do with the company?
I think I've known that since I was 10.
Whoa. Maybe, first of all, let's introduce a little bit what you do in the company. So Citadel Hub is a consultancy company, right? So you help other companies to either extend their team with some extra help, or you take over whatever project they need you to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're a small software development agency. And by small, I mean somewhere around under 10 people, let's say. I'll expand on that later. There's a reason for that. And we do team augmentation, as you said, and end-to-end development.
With 10 years old, I was thinking that I wanted to be, I guess, an astronaut or a soccer player, but you already knew that you wanted to build a consultancy company.
Well, a company in general. A company in general. Okay. I knew for sure that I first of all wanted to be an engineer of some kind. Probably has something to do with how I set up my mind, with the books I read, with the movies I saw.
Right.
And I think that the coolest guy or girl person that I noticed in any kind of sci-fi movie was the engineer, right? So that's who I wanted to be, and I've always known that I want to be an engineer.
It's funny also that you say that the coolest guy or gal was the engineer, because I would say that most of the people don't think that. They always think that the action person is normally the hero, and the engineer is always the sidekick. So it's funny already that you had this in mind. So that somehow for you, being an engineer, which makes total sense, was, being the hero and the crucial part of any action or sci-fi movie.
That's the thing. I see the engineer as the hero.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at every sci-fi movie or TV show, you're gonna, those spaceships or whatever, they work because there's someone there, the engineer or the team of engineers that are keeping it in one piece.
Yeah. So 20 years old, you decide to start a company. Did you ever work for someone else?
No, when I started this company, or at least the legal entity, because that's how I like to separate it somehow.
Okay.
No, I didn't have that much experience, and I think that was one of the biggest mistakes I did. But
right.
And that's why it didn't really take off until 6 to 7 years later.
Gotcha. So when would you consider that your company became an actual company and not a legal entity?
I think at the end of 2019. That's
2019.
End of 2019, and in the prospects were nice, but that's when it started, because that's when I started actually getting to have more contacts, getting to know more contacts, and starting to actually promote the business idea. Right. Until then, I was kind of a sole freelancer.
You were the only employee of your own company, and you're like doing jobs and gigs for other companies.
Back then,
yeah. How did you got your first clients? You have 20, 21, 22 years old. you're getting your first clients, and how did you get them?
I think the first customer came, first solo customer came in 2018. Because until then I've had different side projects, but it was never really taking off the way I wanted it to. So for a few years I worked for different companies. I think 3 companies in total, where I got the knowledge, where I learned a lot more, where I learned how to be a better communicator. I think that's one of the most important things, and get a lot more skill, more technical skill.
Yeah.
Because you can be self-taught. You can be a self-taught individual. You can learn these things in programming quite easily by yourself, but you still need some production experience, which is extremely valuable.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, and I think also that if I go back to my own example, right? I learned most of these things, how to become a developer in Trivago and in Weekend, not at college actually. So a lot of things I didn't even know after finishing college. Also because maybe I didn't study computer science. I study electronics and computers, so we had like both. But there's, I guess, this myth that that's how it should be, right? You need to start it from the beginning. So why do you think that these people were able to start it from the beginning, and even though they didn't have the experience maybe that is required?
Extremely passionate and determined people. They just knew what they wanted, and then they just did it. Did the going to computer science help them? I think it did somehow, but these kinds of people, I mean, we're talking about people who built $1 billion company in the end.
Right.
Well, they tend to be, smarter, above average, smarter. Even if we like them or not, they are quite smart. You got to give them that. So these are really very extreme examples anyway. There are a few of them. There are not so many of them. Not everyone can start off a huge company out of college just because they go to college. Something that people need to understand, and this is something I tell the students I work with. And one of the reasons why they might hate me is that I don't really like to see people who don't have passion in this field. I think it's super important to be extremely passionate about this field, because I'm comparing my own experience, right? As I told you, I knew what I wanted to be from far back as I can remember. So when I see someone coming to computer science that's just coming here for the money, or that's just coming here because it's computers and everyone is doing computers, and
it's what
just
their
a skill.
parents told them to do. Yeah,
it's not just a skill. That's what I try to tell people. It's not just a skill. You have to be super passionate about it. Sure, I mean, there are many roles you can have. You don't have to be a software developer, or you can be a project manager. You can do many things in this field, for sure. But that passion, feeling the need to not just do the school project with the minimum amount of effort, but doing more and more, and adding that library and trying to rewrite that thing and make it better and make it amazing. And that's what I want to see, and that's what I like to see. And I think that's super important.
And even though maybe they are above average, they also had to learn a lot of things, and probably having some experience in working in other companies, they would have learned, like, for instance, being a good communicator, right? So that's something that you I also totally agree with you. It's crucial, because in the end you might be, the smartest person in your company, but if you need the others, you need to work with others. You cannot do everything alone, and if you cannot communicate with them, it's like you don't exist, And so tell me a little bit, what have you learned from in this area of becoming a better communicator? If you can pinpoint a couple of things that you've learned.
So I think there are a couple of levels of communication. So as a team, being part of a team, you need to be able to work with the others, with your teammates. You need to be able to express what you need, to ask the right questions, and be able to help and understand other people's problems. And you need to be an empathic human being to work in a team. And then there's the second level, being a good enough communicator to talk to the client, to the customer, to to make them feel good during the process. You need to know how to communicate with the customer to acquire him in the first place.
One thing that I noticed by working with you at Weekend, so when we had our retrospectives, which are basically meetings where the full team gets together and analyzes what went well and what didn't, you were always very vocal and you were not afraid to criticize what needed to be criticized. So how do you manage to be able to, give feedback to someone and criticize something without being, hated by the team?
It can go both ways, I think. You can easily be hated by the team, but if you, confrontation is part of any good relationship. If you're afraid of confrontation in any kind of business relationship, I think there's something wrong there. So there's always going to be confrontation. The idea is, the point is that how do you say the difficult things? You can be hated if you only think about yourself in a team, right? And I think that most of the things that I was saying in those retros you mentioned were beneficial for the team as a whole somehow. Right. And mixing it up with a bit of humor helps. Great thing to have. That really helps alleviate the tension. Being very vocal doesn't mean complaining all the time, but complaining at the right times. And not really complaining, but just saying the difficult things that everyone is thinking, and maybe some people are afraid to do it.
And giving constructive
feedback. Exactly. Even if it's painful at times, it's very important to do. And
that comes with experience too, and also having a great team. And I think at Weekend we worked with people that were very open-minded and very open to get feedback from the others, and I think that also helps a lot. Let's go back to your path, your journey to Citadel. So okay, I understand now. For the first years, you created a company, but you're not using that much. You're learning still from working in other companies even. And then you said that in 2018, you nailed your first big customer. So tell me the story, how that happened.
In these companies that I worked for, so I was, I started off as a junior developer, coming from college. That's how you start anyway. So you start as a junior developer, then you get more experience, you become a middle, and then you become a senior developer. But in all of these companies, I always found myself trying to do more. Now, I always wanted to do more than my job implied, and maybe that annoyed some people. Maybe some people like that. But I think most people were annoyed by it because I was always trying to get in touch with the customer, to talk with the customer, to understand the customer, to do more than just the tasks that were assigned to me in the project management tool, whatever. That was something that came to me naturally, and that was something that I just wanted to do all the time. And it was difficult. I never really could stay in a company for too long because I got to the point where I wanted to do more, but the job simply didn't need that, or nobody really needed what I wanted to do. And that was disappointing. But I started traveling to Germany for a while as a student. I went to a lot of these hackathons, Germany, the Netherlands, and so on. And that experience was the most amazing experience that I had, I think. Up to that point, I was working in teams with people who had the same desire as me to develop something, to build a product. And I got to know a lot more people, people from different countries, from different fields, and one thing led to another, and I started getting some small projects, doing some small projects. By doing them and actually finishing them, I got good recommendations, good reviews. I think that's how I got my first big customer.
Back then, were you still working alone, or would you already started getting more people to work with you?
I was still working alone. You still need some money to start. To truly start a company, to get employees, to grow your team.
Of course,
and because everything I'm doing is fully funded from my own wallet and nothing else, I did need to work for a while before being able to even pay the rent for an office and so on.
So you got your first client, and for a while then you were working solo with a couple of clients, and they were growing by word of mouth. Because you got good recommendations, or did you try to create a website and do some ads? How did you acquire customers there?
Unfortunately, I don't even have a website now. I mean, there is something, but I wouldn't call it a website. So, yeah, sorry for that. If there are people who try to access it, you're just going to be met by a blank page and some text.
Yeah.
By working for these customers, I was working with people, and I made friends with these people.
Right.
And that's how we met, and that's why this is happening, right? So networking, lots and lots of networking, and just by being a basic okay human being, besides doing your job, I made lots of friends in different countries and in different walks of life, let's say. And that they recommend me, right? Now they recommend my company. And there were some failures as well. There were some failures with some customers.
From your side or from their side?
I always like to say that it's from my side, because there was something that I mismanaged.
Yeah. And what happens when you make a mistake? Like, do you make a discount? Do you say, okay, you're not paying? Like, what happens in terms of payment?
It depends on the customer. More often than not, you have to make a discount, or you have to cut down on the hours, or you have to do some extra work. Fortunately, there wasn't really any case where the customer didn't pay at all. So maybe they paid for a portion of that. Maybe they paid for some of the work. But getting to a middle ground there is very difficult, and it's one of those moments when the confrontation happens. And it's not the greatest thing. It's difficult to manage. But if you find a way, first of all, it'd be great if you didn't get to that point. But the reality
you will
is that
always, right?
you will not always, but you will at some point.
Yeah,
I mean, at some point,
more
than once, and you need to be able to handle that better than, or at least improve. Make a mistake, improve the next time.
Did you have customers screaming at you?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Somehow calling me names, calling me stupid. That
no
happens.
way.
It's part of the job. It is part of the job.
How did you handle that?
If someone really gets that confrontational, you have to dial it back. You have to dial it back a bit. I mean, if someone really gets that, if they get that upset, just cancel the call. Try it another time. There's no place for something like that in this business, from my point of view. But it has happened, because when you're talking about money, that it's a sensitive subject. And one of the biggest things I learned came out of one of the biggest mistakes I did. Never talk with someone when you're angry. Never reply to an email when you're angry.
Wow, yeah,
never make a decision when you're angry. Never call a customer when you're angry. And that's why, if it happens real time, I have an angry customer and I'm angry myself, because you cannot be, if someone calls you stupid to your face, you're going to get angry. Whatever you say at that moment is probably bad. But if it doesn't happen real time, never, as I said, never reply to a message, never call someone, never make a decision when you're angry.
And that applies not only to clients, but applies also to, when you're working with colleagues. And I think we all made that mistake, getting a bad answer or bad response and immediately getting back super angry on Slack or whatever. And I totally agree. That's a big
absolutely.
mistake, but everyone takes it, and it's a great tip. So now I want to understand the point when you get your first employee, right? Because I find it that it's quite amazing, the fact that you were able to get enough money on the side to not only rent an office, but also to actually hire someone, right? So, because hiring someone, it's super expensive, like if you're paying whatever, I don't know the salaries in Romania, but like, even if it's like 40K or 30K, whatever, per year, that's a lot of money that you need to have on the side. So for how long did you have to work until you actually hired your first employee?
A year with better rates, let's say. The first member of the new team, let's call it, for me, it was someone I've known for a long time, someone that I've had a good relationship with always, someone I can call a friend for sure. It's hard to convince someone else. In this case, it's a senior developer, right? So it's hard to convince a senior developer, hey, come to my new company, which doesn't exist yet. Well, at least doesn't have any other people. I'm the only guy, and we're gonna do amazing things here. Now, that's very hard to do. So for me, it was someone that I've known for a while, and I knew that it was worth the risk, because I definitely took a risk. It was a huge risk, an amazing risk, because I didn't have, all the budget. I didn't have it all planned out. I took a huge risk, but I knew it was going to pay off, and it did pay off in the end. But it was, there were a few months there, especially because it kind of happened at the beginning of the pandemic, or at least it started close to the beginning of the pandemic. There were some sleepless nights there. There were some sleepless nights alone in my house with the pandemic happening in the background. It wasn't the greatest thing. But when you come out on the other side, the satisfaction is something that just cannot be explained in words. And you also asked, how do you get the budget for it? Well, by making lots of sacrifices, because I knew this is the thing. This is not just a fad. This is not just something I'm going to try for a while. And because it's nice being a manager and having a couple of employees, I knew this, I just have to do this. There's no question in my mind. There is no doubt in my mind. And then it makes it a lot easier to make those sacrifices. And there were big sacrifices. There were definitely some things that didn't exactly help me have the greatest personal life outside of business, for sure.
So you're talking also on spending more of your time working and less of your time, socializing with your friends, family, and so on, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so my question there is, what if it didn't work out? Like, did this ever come out in your mind that you're like, okay, I'm sacrificing all of this. My friends, are going on holiday, or my family's gathering for birthdays, and I'm here working. What if it doesn't work? What if I have to, sell my company or get rid of my company and go work for someone else? Was this something that was part of your mindset or your mind back then?
I'm definitely aware of the danger. I'm still aware of the danger right now. But even if something bad were to happen, I know for a fact that I'm always going to come back to this. First of all, I don't even consider it as an option, to be honest, to fail. I mean, sure, there might be setbacks. Sure, you're not going to make that amazing profit. You're not going to make any profit at all. We're not going to be able to do the things you want, build that nice house, get that nice whatever. But I just don't see it as an option. I don't have a backup plan. The backup plan is to try again, is to restart if something bad happens. That's the thing. When you start something, the only way to succeed is to be fully committed. If you have backup plans in mind, you're never going to truly succeed. Those backup plans will
drag you down.
Will drag you down, exactly.
I also still want to go back to your first employee. So you got your the budget. I guess your runway couldn't cover a full year, or could it?
No.
Sadly,
no.
So you convinced your friend. You gathered. I guess you got your first client. And so walk me through that. Like, did it work out, or how did it go?
It coincided with one of the customers that failed somehow.
Okay.
So that was also one of the most terrifying things that happened. But then another customer came along, recognizing the value of this friend, and things started going better from there. And then another person and another person and another person and so on. It was something that I tried to postpone as much as possible, to be honest. Getting someone else to rely on you, that's not something that, even if it's just a person, I mean, you have to think that, as you said, the runway was very short, less than a year, and that's very bad, to be honest. I don't think that anyone else should try and do it again. Please don't. And this person was someone, who has a family, someone who relied on the income. It wasn't a joke.
And now you have more employees, right?
Yes. Under 10, as I said. The full number is around that. We have some, part-time collaborations as well.
Right. Yeah. So it feels that it's growing, right? So how do you feel about that? Do you feel that like, okay, now I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that it's taking off, or how do you feel?
You have to enjoy the small victories. So every small customer every customer that you sign a contract with, every new member of the team, you have to enjoy them. I don't really think about these things that much. I'm honestly thinking about the next customer, the next employee, the next project. So I don't really have that much time to think about what happened until now. You always have to plan for the future. And it's a growing company. It's still a startup. Even if it's 8 years old, so it's gonna be 8 years old in October. It's still a startup because, as I said, it only started a couple of years ago. Actually, the biggest problem I have right now is getting more people on board. I actually have projects that I cannot staff fast enough. And I'm facing the problem of losing customers because I cannot staff their project.
It's horrifying and good at the same time, I guess.
Yes, it's good, but it's not so good because when you do the math, then you see that you need to grow because you need to put your money where your mouth is in some cases. And once you start growing, there's really no going back. Not an easy way to go back.
Does the fear of failure gets worse as you grow because you feel like I cannot fail now and I'm so big, or is it the same?
I think there's a point which, yes, you're probably a bit too big to fail in the common sense of the word. I mean, as a software agency, if you have enough people, if you have, I don't know, even between 10 to 20 people, those are incredibly valuable resources. Those people are incredibly valuable. Their skill is incredibly valuable. So even if you fail somehow, there's going to be someone on the horizon trying to acquire you or to acquire those people. It's not that scary at that point, I guess, but of course you want to achieve, you want to succeed by yourself, so that's not really what you're thinking. I mean, I personally am not thinking about an exit. I will never do an exit if I have the choice. The fear is always present, but I think the fear always also drives you to do more and more and to work more and to try and fix the issues.
Yeah, also not having fear sometimes just means that you're careless, right? So it's always good that and tell me something. So at the moment you are working for others, right? So you are working in projects from other companies, but I know that you already have also some ideas for your own projects, and you have been working in like little side projects, and and I know that there's something that you're working now that you're very passionate about. Do you want to speak about it?
Yeah, a bit of history here, if you allow it. So,
of course.
The reason why we started off these small projects, in-house projects, internal projects, if we can call them that, is we are trying to use them as stepping stones for the more junior developers that we have, or the more or the people that we're trying to train, because we also try that. If we find someone who is a great person but needs some experience to become a great developer as well, we need some project. We need to simulate a real project as close as possible, because we're not going to start them off in a customer project from the beginning. We do some training because that's very important. We tend not to lie to our customers, so that they usually don't get unexperienced people in their project. And we had multiple little projects. I mean, even the company, the corporate website, is a Next.js project that we're using to train people front-end developers. Even if you only see a couple of lines of text on the website, behind it there is a lot of work done by junior developers that started learning the technologies there. And one of these projects that we're currently working on, it was something that you inspired me to do, actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a surprise. Yeah, I didn't mention that before.
Yeah.
But I know you have changed it, and you're making a good case for one of the biggest issues we have right now
Yeah.
as a civilization. And it's a little app called Frigodero. It's a weird name in Romanian. It doesn't mean that much. But you can start from a crazy idea and make something great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what Frigodero is. And it's actually, we want to start doing this sort of fridge management app that notifies you when you have open packages that you need to finish, when you have products that are expiring soon. Because one of the things that unfortunately I do myself is waste food. And I realized it at some point. Okay, but I'm wasting so much food, and
it's a big problem too. Yeah,
it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. It's whenever I see people throwing food in the trash, expired or not, that's irrelevant. Why did it get to that point? It's horrible. It's one of the things that really bothers me the most, and it bothers me because unfortunately I did it, and sometimes I find myself doing it. We want to help you reduce food waste by managing your fridge better, by notifying you that you need to take care of those expired products, expired groceries, and even one of the most important features we want to implement, which is going to be probably one of the most difficult things to implement because it requires a lot of content, actually, is suggesting you things that you can do with these items that are expiring.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah,
that are either expiring or need to be done.
No, that's a great idea, and quite often people also forget what they have in the fridge. So having such an app,
exactly, yeah,
it's amazing. I think it's like one in every. So in the US, when people buy, for instance, 3 bags of groceries, one goes to waste. It's either 1/3 or 1/4 goes to waste, which is completely crazy. And of course, the energy to produce that food, it's immense. So I really appreciate that idea. I think it's great. So do you also have an idea already how to make money with it, or it's just still let's build a product and figure that out afterwards?
Let's build the product and figure it out.
Okay.
To be honest, we hope to have some sort of first version in the next couple of months.
Yeah. So there's nothing we can share now with our listeners.
At the moment, I am afraid not. Afraid not. But hopefully in the next couple of months.
Yeah. Let's do it like this. Maybe we can do another. Yeah, let's do another episode one day just about that, just about Frigodero and how it evolved. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I would really like that, and
cool.
let's say in 2 months that would be possible.
Cool, Cristi. It was great speaking with you. I think there's so many great tips that we spoke about it here, and I think a lot of our listeners will really appreciate that. I will just finish with the last question, which is, if there is someone now starting their consultancy company, what is like the one tip? If you could only give one tip to them, what is the most important tip you would give them?
Don't do it for the money. What can you bring to the customers? Can you really bring value to the customers? If so, go ahead. If you're only doing it for the money, stop. There are so many others who are doing it just for the money.
Yeah, Cristi, thank you so much. I would also invite you to join our Wannabe Entrepreneur Slack channel. It's a channel where we have most of the people we interview are there, plus the members. And to become a member, now it's for the listener. If you want to become a member and speak with Cristi and all other people that we interview, you can just go to Buy Me a Coffee, and it's a €4 fee per month, and you also have access to a bunch of premium content and so on. So yeah, Cristi, I would love for you to join as well.
I would also love to do that. Sure, sounds great.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
It was great talking to you. It was great being here. So yeah, really happy about it.
Yeah, me too, Cristi. And now for the listener, if you like this podcast, would really mean the world to me if you could share it with your entrepreneur friends. And if you like this kind of interviews, I would recommend you to listen to interview that I did with Matthias, episode 29, one of the first. And yeah, it's great. Matthias is also a developer, and he speaks about the project that he started and finished in just 10 days. And yeah, this was another Wannabe Entrepreneur. See you tomorrow.